In this segment, we'll be creating playable songs. I'm just going to go fit in window here. And I'll actually return to my original completed file and we'll talk about it a bit. So we're going to create buttons and we'll have a movie clip that has a progress bar that animates in tandem with the duration of the song. And we'll also have a stop button for that. So to begin with, we do need to import the sounds. So I'm going to start import to library. And hopefully I'll be able to find these quick. Here are my button sounds and I'm just going to grab them all. I'll probably just use 2 of them. And I'll see if I can find the music sounds as well. Import to library. And I've got 4 clips from the old classic Spider-Man TV show. I'm going to use those, which I can legally do in the context of education. And I just love that music. So there we go. If I go to my library, I have the various songs and the various button sounds. And I think I'll use those 2. Okay, so there we have the sound. And we're going to create movie clips and so on to host those. And I do have designated layers as well. So let's just start. I think I'll just start with the buttons actually. So I've highlighted my button layer. I'm going to quickly go to my oval tool. And I'm going to get rid of the psychedelic fill and just use a solid color. So let's see here. I'll just use this bright red fill and I'll see how big the stroke is. I'm going to hold my key down. And I think I'll make the stroke a bit smaller. I'll double click it here and just bring it down to maybe 6 or 4. 6 is good, I think. There we go. All right, so immediately I'm going to turn that into a button. Modify, convert to symbol, button, and I'll call it red butt for short. That's the name it will have in the library. I'll double click it quickly just to give it a mouse over feature. So I'll highlight the overstate, keyframe that with my F6 key, select the object on the stage and alter its fill color. I think I'm going to go with my color picker and do it that way and just make it lighter. Okay, hit my return key to accept that and come back out to scene 1. Of course, save as I go here. And I think I'm going to make a duplicate of that. So I will go over, I'm going to close the palette here and go over to my library and right click on red button and duplicate it. And I'll just call it, let's see, blue B-U-T. Okay. Now I'm going to double click that. I'll actually drag it to the stage first. Okay, and just kind of visually align those. Double click it and I'm going to change its fill color. So I'm just going to come up here to the hues and then come over to the overstate, select it again, go to the hues and just pick the lighter version of that. And now I have 2 distinctly colored buttons. Definitely save that. Okay. Since we're on the topic of buttons, why don't we make our stop music button? Now I'm going to make just one common red square button for that. So I will go to my rectangle tool. Again, still in my button layer. Just going to drag it and create it over here. Double click it and change its color. I'm going to the color palette. I could have gone to the color chips as well. Fill that up and close that off. And let me go to properties here and actually make that stroke less. I'll get it back to 4 as well. There we go. Okay, so I'll make that square a button also. Convert to symbol. Then all my buttons will be done. I'm just going to call this stop B-U-T, stop button. And double click it, give it a mouse over feature, highlight the overstate, F6 to keyframe, select it again to change its color. And in this case, I'm just going to go with sort of an orange. So it goes from red to orange when I mouse over it. Okay, I'm just going to save that. Now, you know what? With respect to sound, maybe let's do the sound in the buttons first. In fact, that's a good idea, I think. So I'm going to go back into the red button, and we're going to add our sound. Now, I'm going to add it to a new layer. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to add it to the mouse down. So what I think I'll do is on the bottom layer 1 for the graphics, I'm going to span that all the way out to the hit zone by hitting F5 on the hit state. And in the down state on my new layer, I'll actually call it sound. And keyframe the down state, F6. And in there, the way we apply sound is when a frame is selected, over in your properties panel, you have a sound module here, and you select out of your choices that are in your library. So I'm just going to pick latch thick, and we'll just save that. I'll go back up to scene 1, save it. Let's do a quick test. Okay, I'll see what I did wrong. So this is why we test, of course. Let me go back in here and double click on here. Oh, I think because it was going into the hit state as well. So let me just keyframe that, F6, and try that again. There we go. Okay, so testing is very important. Let me just go back to my file now and just go to the timeline and just double click that again just to review. So I had to isolate that in the down state, and let me name that layer as well, sound, just to formalize it. And if I come back, we'll take a quick look at the other two buttons. Same idea, it was isolated in the down state here, and I did name it. Okay, so again, just save the file. And now for the fun part, which is the song. So we're going to start just by creating, oh, let me just do a save here, not a save as. We're going to create a rectangle, convert that to a movie clip, and apply our song in there. And we're going to actually have a trigger as well. So we're going to have some code inside of the movie clip. Ultimately, we'll have code on this layer as well to address these buttons. So we will ultimately need to name these buttons with instance names. But we'll do all that at one time at the end. So I'm going to go down to song layer 1, draw a rectangle, and I think I'm going to give it a bright green fill. Actually, you know what? I'll match the color for the button, and we'll just draw that over here. And I'm just going to double click that to select the whole thing and modify that. Convert to symbol, movie clip, and I'll just call it song. Song 1. Okay, save that. And everything else happens inside of that movie clip, so let's double click it to get inside. So I need to separate the stroke from the fill to create the animation. So I'm going to start by just calling this layer fill, and then I'll create a layer on top called stroke. Okay, and I'll double click on the then come to that designated layer called stroke, select it, edit, paste, in place. So now the fill is actually underneath the stroke, and if I was to hide that, you can see they're on separate layers. Okay, I'm just saving as I go here. And now we will create a layer for the song. Okay, so I'm going to span this out here just to frame 50 for all 3 frames right now. F5 to start with. Okay, and come back to frame 1 and go into the song layer. Actually, I'm going to add another layer called Actions above that. Actions. And you know, while I'm on the topic, I think I will add one more for the labels. I'm going to go back to my song layer to generate a layer above it, and I'll call that labels for my frame labels. The way this is going to work, I'm actually going to initiate it by stopping the playhead on frame 1, and then when we click one of these buttons, we're going to tell that playhead to go to frame 2 and play. So I'm going to start the song on frame 2. So over here in the song layer, let me just click away here. In the song layer, with the song layer selected and my playhead lined up, I'm going to hit F6, which creates a keyframe right there. Select frame, come over to the sounds, and I'll just pick the first one called Spider-Man Running, actually the second one right there. And you can start to see an audio waveform. So the way this is going to work is, in fact, you have to allow for the number of frames to permit the song to play through manually on the timeline. That's why I put it in a movie clip. So what I would suggest doing is moving your playhead towards the end and holding your F5 key down and run it through till you see that orange line turn into a fine flat line and ultimately disappear. So I'm just hanging on here till I see the end of the song. In the thousands of frames. Now these are short clips. My way through here. Usually when it's that thin, the song is done, but I will go to the end. And it should be quite soon. There it is right there. Okay, I definitely want to save that. And at this point, I can create an animation that will basically align with the duration of the song, and that would be the fill animating. So I'm going to keyframe the final frame in my fill there. I can select that frame right at the end there and keyframe that F6. Okay, I'm going to come back to frame 1 and designate a shape tween, create shape tween. So the last thing I want to do is take this fill and just stretch it to be a thin sliver of itself. So I'm going to go back up to the free transform tool, select it while my playhead is on frame 1, and in this case I want to bring it over to the left side, so I will hold down my command key on the Mac or control key on the PC, and it will animate from this thin slice to the thick full slice that was on the last keyframe. Alright, I'm just going to save this right now, and I will create 2 labels as well. I'll start with the first keyframe. I'll just call that one Start, and I'll put a keyframe right next to it on frame 2. So I'll move my playhead over to frame 2, keyframe it, F6, select it, and call that one Go. 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 Alright, saving as I go. I need to put a pause on frame 1. I know that for sure. I don't want this to start initially, so I'm going to go back to frame 1, select the first layer in Actions, and using my wizard through the Actions panel, I here. Add using wizard. Choose Stop. Then choose this timeline. Click Next. With this frame, finish and add. And save. So the idea will be to go up to the main timeline and put code in that will tell this playhead to go on the frame label called Go when we click the designated button. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to go up to scene 1. Now I can actually hit the return key if I want to test the sound here, and maybe that would be a good idea. Okay. And I can hit the return key to stop it. So we're good there. I heard the sound. So back up to scene 1. And at this point, we need to do a bunch of naming. I just went back to my selection tool. I need to name the movie clip to speak to it. I need to name all the buttons to speak to them. I'm just going to move that up a bit there. So I'll start with the first button, the red button, instance name. I'll call that song 1 underscore btn. Hit my enter key. Then I'm going to select the movie clip, and I'll call that one song 1 underscore MC for movie clip. Then I'll select the stop button, and I'll name that song 1 underscore stop underscore btn. Okay, so let's just go to our actions panel and use the wizard for the code. So again, with the frame selected in the timeline where I want the code to go, I will apply the add using wizards. Actions layer, add using wizard. So I want to do a mouse click, and I want to, the action is I want to go to frame label and play. So go to frame label and play is how I'll start. And you can see it has listed the movie clip. Perfect. Song 1 MC. And I have to type in manually the name of that label, and it was called Go. Right there, Go. Click Next. And how do I want to trigger this? On a mouse click. On which button? Song 1 underscore btn. Finish and add. Let me just close this and save it and test that before I do the stop button. Save it, and I will test this in the browser. Okay, I'm just testing in the browser here, and here we go. All right, excellent. So the next step will be to make a stop feature. I'm going to do a fine-tuning adjustment to the graphics as well. Let me show you what I mean here. It starts with the little piece sticking out. This is just me being fussy, but I'm going to go into that movie clip and just move this first keyframe over by 1 so that when I'm on frame 1, it appears empty. I know I'm being fussy, but I like to make it perfect. Okay, so we start with sort of a blank box, if you will. All right, so that worked beautifully. The next stop feature, we're going to have to, I'm going to give you a heads up, we're going to have to put in a little bit of hand coding for this with the JavaScript. I'll show you what the code is in the finished file. So up here, okay, let me just scroll down here for the stop button. We will be sending the playhead back to that first frame inside of the movie clip, as you can see here with this line, but we're going to add this code manually. It's not in the wizard, but it is JavaScript that will work to stop the sound. So we're going to manually create js.sound.stop empty brackets, and if that's okay, I'm going to actually copy this so I don't make a typo. And just close that and go back to my working file. Okay, so start with, I'm just going to initiate with the wizard. I'm going to click back on that designated frame for my code to send the playhead back to frame 1, which has a frame label called start. So let's call my actions. And again, I am in the proper frame here, so I'll just initiate the wizard. And what do I want to do? I want to go to a frame label and stop. Frame label and stop. Again, inside of the movie clip, song 1 underscore MC, I will type in the label. If you recall, it was called start, which was my first frame. Click next, and on mouse click, which mouse? The button called song 1 stop underscore btn. Finish and add. I'm just going to close that and save it as well. And this will be the big test. We know the start button works. Let's see. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't add my special code. Let me go back. I would have figured that out in the testing, but let me just go back here. So this was again the code that I just put in. I'm just going to hit a return, and I had copied it, so I'm going to paste it in here, but it is create.js dot capital S sound dot stop empty brackets semicolon. Okay, I will close that and save that one more time. Fingers crossed. Initiate my test movie, and we'll start. There we go, and I hope you noticed the button sounds as well. So without that special hand coding, the sound would have continued playing even though the progress bar would have graphically stopped. Okay. And there you have it. I'm not going to do the second one on video. Just roll the video back if you need to see how that was done and create another one just like it inside of a movie clip for song number 2. Now I will go back and just quickly show you how I created the background color. Again, I clicked on the background, stage color. If you want to choose a color like that, just a quick save here and run that through, and that will only appear in the movie area. And in another lesson I'll show you how you can have that stretch to the full screen or have it centered and so on. Okay, and here is our song. And that completes the 3-part assignment for today.